Despite all his rage, he's still just Nicolas Cage. Despite all his rage, he's still just Nicolas Cage. And someone will say his career can never be saved. Despite all his rage, he's still just Nicolas Cage.
Welcome to Just Nicolas Cage, where I very slowly work my way through Nicolas Cage's filmography. And today I'm here to talk about how Nicolas Cage is a national treasure. Sorry, I was meant to say Nicolas Cage in National Treasure, but the first statement is true too, I guess. In National Treasure, Nicolas Cage's character learns at a young age about an ancient treasure hidden by the founding fathers that his family have been searching for generations. Years later, he learns that there's a key clue to its location on the back of the Declaration of Independence. But Sean Bean and his team of mercenaries are also after the treasure, so the race is on to see who can find the treasure first. I like to consider myself a bit of a Nicolas Cage aficionado at this point, but I have to admit, until very recently I'd never seen a National Treasure movie. I think for a lot of people my age, National Treasure was the first Nicolas Cage film they ever saw, but for whatever reason it just passed me by. So prior to watching National Treasure, I knew about the whole stealing the Declaration of Independence thing, but outside of that I didn't really know what to expect. I guess I thought it would be like Indiana Jones, and I guess it is a little bit in the sense that it's about a pursuit for treasure, but having seen National Treasure now, it's probably closer to the Da Vinci Code. Think less Indian guys doing voodoo rituals and more reading documents and solving riddles. Actually, I've never even seen the Da Vinci Code, so I don't know if that's accurate. But I guess I mean that I was waiting for the whole of National Treasure for that Indiana Jones crazy third act where it gets supernatural. You know, Nazis' faces getting melted off, aliens, time travel, etc. I mean, I would have settled for the big reveal to be that Abraham Lincoln's hat was actually hiding a hand, or that Benjamin Franklin was secretly a woman. Actually, as I learned in National Treasure, after being denied several times to publish letters in the newspaper, Benjamin Franklin then started writing letters under the name Silence Dogood, a middle-aged widow. So technically, I guess Benjamin Franklin was briefly a woman. But yeah, after the kooky premise of the movie involving founding fathers hiding a treasure, I think I expected the movie to double down on the craziness. I mean, this movie heavily involves Freemasons. 9 of the men that signed the Declaration of Independence were Freemasons. Even Harvey Keitel is a Freemason in this universe. So I thought it would have been great if in this movie, one of the clues pointed Nicolas Cage to a Masonic lodge with all these elderly Freemasons, and they see him and they gasp and they go, "One of our past members regaled us of a story about how in the 1950s his granddaughter was dislodged in time. So him and the other members of our Masonic order performed a time travel ritual to send her back to 1985. And Nick Cage is like, okay, what does that have to do with me? And they show him a picture and say, because her boyfriend looked exactly like you. Oh my god, what a twist. Okay, if you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, in the Nicolas Cage movie Peggy Sue Got Married, Kathleen Turner's character's grandfather is a Freemason, and he takes her to his lodge, which he says was founded by a time traveler. And then his friends do a time travel ritual, which doesn't work. But yeah, I thought that would be perfect to cross over with National Treasure. You could find out that maybe there was some sort of truth to the Freemason time traveling shenanigans. Or maybe Benjamin Gates discovers that there's some sort of multiverse scenario going on, and that just opens things up to a cinematic Peggy Sue-niverse. Okay, sorry, I've gotten way off the rails here. But even though National Treasure doesn't quite go in that direction, that's not to say that there isn't some ridiculous stuff going on in this movie. Like, this movie sure makes breaking into the National Archives look really easy. Like, at one point, Riley goes down the subway and hooks up like a transmitter up to his laptop and plugs a thing into a thing, and then just like that, he has access to the entire security feed of the archives. I don't really get what he did there because they don't explain a lot of the tech, but I can't imagine it's that simple. And of course you have the famous line that launched a bunch of memes.
I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence.
I don't know why the guy standing a few feet away nearby isn't like, security, this guy just said he's gonna steal the Declaration of Independence. There's also another scene that I've now learned that the internet is obsessed with. So the crew are at Nicolas Cage's character's dad's house, and they realize that to uncover the secret message on the back of the Declaration of Independence, they need to use lemon juice. And then it cuts to the fridge where Jon Voight's character has a bunch of lemons. And based on the BuzzFeed articles and Reddit posts and multiple tweets I've seen, people cannot wrap their heads around a guy owning that many lemons. Keep in mind, this is a movie where the founding fathers created secret clues pointing to an ancient treasure, and Nick Cage stops bullets using the Declaration of Independence. But a man having a dozen lemons in the fridge is where people draw the line, apparently. He probably liked having a few cocktails, or maybe he was making a lemon meringue later, we don't know. You know, even though I'm English, American history genuinely does interest me quite a lot. I care more about John Adams and the Constitution than I care about Oliver Cromwell and the Magna Carta. Maybe because Paul Giamatti has never played Oliver Cromwell in a HBO miniseries, but I can't really say I learned all that much of note from National Treasure. I guess that thing I talked about earlier about Benjamin Franklin writing letters as a woman was vaguely interesting, and the movie did teach me that daylight saving time wasn't established until World War I, which I didn't know. But even then, this movie is so wacky that it's hard to trust some of the things they say. Like, according to this movie, Benjamin Franklin invented the 3D glasses.
Oh, they're like early American X-ray specs.
Benjamin Franklin invented something like these.
I think he invented these.
Why would Ben Franklin need 3D glasses? The movie Avatar wasn't out for another 200 years. The action in this movie is alright. There's a customary massive explosion because this is a Jerry Bruckheimer production, and there's a couple of decent set pieces. I did like that rickety old underground area at the end, but I guess I expected a little more action in this movie. For an action-adventure movie, it does have a very low death count. Even the main villain of the movie survives at the end, and he's played by Sean Bean, so that speaks for itself. The whole Declaration of Independence theft sequence, with Sean Bean and Nicolas Cage racing against each other to pull off the heist, is quite fun. I like the contrast to Sean Bean's crew using violence, and Nick Cage and Riley using espionage and technology. I think the movie kind of peaks at this point in terms of the set pieces. It never really gets as exciting as this part, but it happens like a third of the way into the movie. But like I said earlier, the movie is kind of more of a puzzle-solving movie than it is about action. But I can't really say that I love the puzzle scenes either. Nick Cage just seemed to solve all the clues really quickly without much struggle. Like in 2 minutes he figured out that this nonsense means that there's an invisible map on the back of the Declaration of Independence. It would have been fun if the riddles were possible to solve along at home, but a lot of them were just incomprehensible to me. So let's talk about the cast, starting with the National Treasure himself, Nicolas Cage. I assumed that this was going to be one of his crazy unhinged performances, but he actually plays it relatively straight. There's a Vanity Fair interview where he talked about his method and how he didn't want to play it too tongue-in-cheek, which makes sense.
I think what really makes it work is how serious Justin and I are taking it. If you played it for laughs, then it's screwball comedy and it's stupid and it's not my thing. It's not where I'm at. But the fact that we played it like dramatic actors makes it even more funny than it might have been if it was slapstick.
There's nothing particularly remarkably interesting about his character, or even his performance, but I quite like Nicolas Cage in this. Even though he's downplaying it, he's still very charismatic.
Had we lost the war, they would have been hanged, beheaded, drawn and quartered, and my personal favorite, had their entrails cut out and burned.
And his enthusiasm goes a long way to sell some of the potentially boring exposition.
On the back of a $100 bill is an etching of Independence Hall based on a painting done in the 1780s. The artist was actually a friend of Benjamin Franklin's. It's wonderful.
Fascinating.
And the earnestness in which he sells the lines is very enjoyable. The rest of the supporting cast is solid, with one exception, which I'll get to. Sean Bean is good as the slimy English traitorous guy. It's a role that Sean Bean can play in his sleep, but he's having fun. Diane Kruger has decent chemistry with Nick Cage, and I enjoyed seeing Harvey Keitel, mainly for the novelty of the OG Bad Lieutenant and the Bad Lieutenant Port of Call New Orleans sharing a scene together. And then we have Riley, the wisecracking computer hacking sidekick, played by the guy they're looking for in The Hangover. From what I've seen online, it seems like this guy is a fan favorite, beloved character. So it seems like I'm in the minority when I say that I could not stand this guy. I personally found him to be unfunny, whiny, and annoying.
I'd love to go shopping too, but we have no money. When are we gonna get there? This car smells weird.
I assume people like him because he's there to give the young audience somebody to identify with, and to keep them interested between all the talk about American history. But yeah, I did not care for that guy. So overall, I didn't like National Treasure quite as much as I thought I would. For a movie with a premise this quirky, the actual movie does feel a bit generic, like a watered down version of things I've seen before. It took me about 35 minutes or so to warm up to the film, and then I did start to have a bit of fun with it. And I am glad that I watched it, partially for Nicolas Cage. Even though it's not an all-time best performance of his, he really is the glue that keeps this movie from falling apart, and I couldn't picture anybody else in the role. Also, this movie came out when I was 12 years old, and I bet I would have loved it back then. It's a good family film, I think. If your kid is too young to handle the face-melting Nazis from Indiana Jones, but they like action-adventure, then sure, show them National Treasure. There was a sequel in 2007, which I'll have to talk about eventually, and a TV show in 2022 which doesn't feature Nicolas Cage, so thankfully I won't have to talk about that. But before all that, the next movie Nicolas Cage was in was Lord of War, so until next time guys, thanks for watching.